Part 1. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Have you seen my fiancé? Yunchinj. Emperor Hotel. Tonight, the Su family, one of the famous families in Yunchinj, is hosting a dinner here. Although the Chiao family was in decline, Chiao Mian accompanied her fiancé Suzi to the banquet by virtue of her status as Su Xiaodong's fiancé. Midsummer. The gardenias downstairs are in bloom, and the breeze blows by, sending waves of floral fragrance wafting up. Having drunk a little too much, Chiao Mian stood on the balcony outside the hall, blowing in the wind for a while before feeling dizzy. When she returned to the hall, Chiao Mian didn't see Suzi. Chiao Angzhen, who came with them, also disappeared. She searched everywhere and took out her mobile phone to dial Suzi's number. It rang for a long time but Suzi didn't answer. I called Chiao Angzhen's cell phone again, but it rang for a long time, but no one answered. Chiao Mian looked down at her phone, her face changing slightly. She suddenly remembered that Suzi came to Chiao's house to pick her up tonight. She changed clothes upstairs and went downstairs. She saw Suzi and Chiao Angzhen sitting on the sofa talking. The two were very close to each other, and their posture seemed very intimate. Chiao Angzhen also reached out and hugged Suzi's arm. Thinking of this, she turned a little pale. She found a waiter and asked, "Excuse me, have you seen my fiancé? His surname is Su, and this is his photo." Chiao Mian turned over the photos taken of Suzi on her phone and showed them to the waiter. The waiter glanced at her, and when he looked up at her, his eyes were a little strange, and there seemed to be a little sympathy in his eyes. "You mean this gentleman? I just saw him walking that way." Asterisk. In the hotel courtyard. Under a big tree by the swimming pool. Warm lights cast a shallow layer on the ground, and a pair of familiar figures under the tree hugged each other. "Brother A's." The woman's voice is soft and charming, her white hands are around the man's neck, and she is leaning against her arms like a bird. The man seemed to be worried, looked around, stretched out his hand and pushed her away. The woman immediately pestered him again. "Brother A's, why are you pushing me away?" When Suzi looked towards Chiao Mian immediately ducked behind a cover. She heard Suzi say, "Xin, you just said you wanted to give me a surprise. What on earth did you mean?" Chiao Angzhen's voice was as sweet as honey, and she seemed to be a little shy, and she said softly, "Brother A's, I'm pregnant." For a moment, Chiao Mian felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her eyes widened in shock, and her face turned pale as a sheet for an instant. "What?" Suzi was also very surprised. "How did you say you were doing?" "Brother A's, I'm pregnant." Chiao Angzhen threw herself into his arms and hugged him with a happy expression on her face. "I'm pregnant with our baby. You will be a father soon, are you happy?" Suzi lowered his head, his face full of surprise, and his brows furrowed slightly. "When did this happen?" "Just a month ago." Chiao Angzhen leaned in Suzi's arms, raised her head slightly, and looked towards the place where Chiao Mian was hiding. She curled her lips, a hint of coolness flashed in her eyes, and the smile on her lips also showed a bit of provocation. "That day, my sister went to the crew to film, and we did it on the bay window of your house." "That time she went to film a month ago?" Chiao Mian swayed and felt dizzy. That bay window in Suzi's house. She used to love lying on it and reading books. Thinking of this, her stomach turned. Chiao Angzhen said something else, but Chiao Mian didn't hear a word clearly. Her mind went blank. After a while, she suddenly heard Suzi say, "Let's go, it's time to go back. She will become suspicious if we have been out for too long." The new article has finally been posted. The consistent love story and slap in the face and abuse of the scum are extremely satisfying. The book Hot Sweet Wife is still a baby and needs a lot of love from everyone. So if you like this book, you can add it to your bookshelf and give it a 5-star review. Everyone's support is the motivation for Vuchazi. I love you. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. I prepared a gift for you. After the two of them had finished making love, they turned around and headed back to the hall. Chiao Mianmian's face was pale, and her heart seemed to have been torn open. She looked up with red eyes and saw Suzy holding Chiao Angzhen's waist and walking towards her. Seeing the two people getting closer and closer, she panicked, turned around and ran away. Asterisk. Chiao Mianmian was feeling groggy. She didn't know if the after effects of the wine were coming out, and she started to feel dizzy. While running, she saw several tall men in black walking towards her. She accidentally bumped into one of them. Just as he was about to apologize, he was grabbed by the man and heard him saying, "It's her. They've found her, take her away." What is she? Have they got the wrong person? Chiao Mianmian struggled twice, trying to resist, but she had no strength at all. My head is getting more and more dizzy, and my consciousness is gradually blurring. Asterisk. Presidential suite floor. The hotel elevator door opens. A group of bodyguards and hotel staff came out surrounded by a very outstanding-looking man. The man's aura is extremely strong, his facial features are cold and delicate, and every part of his face is exquisite and perfect that is difficult to describe with pen and ink. At least 1.86 meters tall, with better body proportions than a supermodel walking on the catwalk. He wore a hand-tailored suit that was exquisitely tailored. The platinum buttons on the cuffs and chest reflected dazzling light under the light of the crystal lamp. Black suit trousers wrapped around the man's straight and slender legs. He walked elegantly and walked outside a room. The bodyguard immediately stepped forward and opened the door. The man walked into the room, stretched out his hand to tear off the tie around his neck, and threw it into the closet next to him. He had just taken 2 steps in when an unusual heat suddenly surged through his body. With a click, the door was locked from the outside. He was stunned for a moment, frowned, turned around and strode to the door, stretched out his hand and pulled the door open. Can't pull it apart. I pulled it twice more, but still couldn't open it. The man's face darkened, and his cell phone rang at this time. Caller ID, Yan Xiaoqing. As soon as the call was connected, a man's playful voice came over, "Second brother, you have just returned to China, and we have specially prepared a gift for you. Have you seen it? Do you like it or not?" A hint of anger appeared on the man's handsome face, his eyes narrowed, and his deep magnetic voice was filled with cold air. "What are you talking about? Open the door." "That's not possible, second brother. I made a bet with fourth brother and the others tonight. If you come out like this, I will lose to the point where I don't even have to wear underwear." Another lowly voice came over, "Second brother, I'm betting on you to be able to hold on, don't let me down." The man's face became darker and darker. After saying that, the other party hung up the phone first. "Call again and it will remind the other party that their phone has been turned off." Asterisk. Mo Yesi stood outside the bathroom with a gloomy expression. In the bathroom, there was the sound of water running, and there were people inside. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold curve, and after a moment, he reached out and pushed open the door. He couldn't help but pause in his steps. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Disappear from my room immediately. The smoke dispersed, and the scene in front of us gradually became clear. There was a woman sitting in the bathroom. She has a stunningly beautiful face, with picturesque eyebrows and delicate features, and her lips are a light cherry blossom color. A pair of eyes as bright as stars, as if countless tiny stars were rubbed into them, their eyes are astonishingly bright. Even Moyesi, who was used to seeing beauties, was also stunned for a moment. This is the beauty that Yan Shaoqing and the others gave him. This woman is indeed beautiful, but it's a pity that he is not interested in any woman no matter how beautiful she is. He stood aside and watched for a while, with a sneer on his lips, and said coldly to the woman, "Get out of here. I'll give you 1 minute and disappear from my room immediately." Hearing his voice, the woman slowly raised her head. First she frowned, stared at him for a while, and then suddenly stretched out her hand. Before Moyesi could react, she reached out and grabbed his trousers. Moyesi's body suddenly became stiff and his whole body was tense. He thought he would vomit it out immediately, or that he might be itchy or allergic, but after waiting for a while, the imagined rejection reaction did not happen. Moyesi has misogyny. Except for his relatives, no woman can get close to him. But he suddenly discovered that he did not object to this woman's approach. His body did not have any adverse reactions. Moyesi lowered his head and looked at her blankly. The man's deep, dark eyes were filled with shock and surprise. Before he could figure it out, the girl had already climbed up from the ground, her slender arms hooked around his neck, and under her astonished gaze, she stood up on her tiptoes and kissed his thin, cold lips. She raised her delicate little face and looked at him with wet eyes. "Help me." End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Such a phenomenon has never happened before. Asterisk. The next day, when Xiao Mian woke up, she was alone on the big bed, but there was the sound of water running in the bathroom. She sat on the bedside holding the quilt, her mind was blank for a few seconds. After a few seconds, all her memories were restored. Thinking about what happened last night, her face turned pale. While thinking, the sound of water in the bathroom stopped. Xiao Mian no longer thought about it. She endured the discomfort and jumped out of bed. She quickly picked up the clothes on the ground and put them on before turning around and leaving quietly. Asterisk. As soon as Xiao Mian stepped forward, there was a click and the bathroom door opened. Moyesi walked out of the bathroom. He wears a bath towel around his body, has broad shoulders, a muscular chest, a narrow waist, and 2 incredibly long legs. A wet and messy short hair, creating a somewhat unruly and casual feel. He glanced casually into the room, and when he saw that the messy big bed was empty, he was stunned, and then walked to the bed with dark eyes. He called Lu Rao, and soon a lazy voice came over. "ACI, what's the wind blowing today? You actually took the initiative to call me." Moyesi ignored his teasing and said directly, "There was a woman in my room last night." There was a moment of silence. Cough cough cough. The man on the other side of the phone seemed to be choked and coughed violently. What did you say?" "ACI, what do you mean by staying? Do you mean what I understand?" You guys that one." Moyesi, "Yeah." Cough cough cough. The man coughed violently again. He was as shocked as seeing the sun rising from the west. "Damn, don't you hate women touching you? There was once a woman who accidentally touched you. I remember to wash your hands 10 times immediately." But he didn't reject the woman last night at all. "Not only do I not reject her, I also really like the faint fragrance on her body. Can't help but want to get closer to her." He called Lu Rao just to find out what was wrong with him. "You want to tell me that your problem will suddenly be cured?" "I don't know either." Moyesi was silent for a few seconds and frowned slightly. "She seems to be different from other women. My body will not reject her, and I like her to be close to me. Such a phenomenon has never happened before." And Moyesi lowered his eyes and looked at the messy big bed. After a few seconds of silence, he said in a deep voice, I slept for 6 hours last night, and I didn't wake up in the middle, and I never had that nightmare again. Lu Rao over there was very surprised. What is going on? Mo Yesi narrowed his eyes and rubbed his eyebrows. His voice was a little hoarse. If I knew, I wouldn't call you. I'm wondering if it has something to do with her. Lu Rao, the woman who made you lose your innocence. Mo Yesi. Lu Rao was a little bit offended, but quickly put away his joking, and said seriously, you want to know if he has anything to do with her? It's very simple. You'll know if you come into contact with her again, won't you? Mo Yesi. Lu Rao, ACI, I'm not kidding. If it's really because of her, then this woman can be your savior. A savior? End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 I plan to give birth to this child. His world has been dark for 20 years, and he thought he was used to the darkness. If he has never felt light and warmth, he will continue to get used to it. However, after being exposed to such beauty, he was never willing to go back to the darkness. If she is really his savior, he will get this woman no matter what. Asterisk. Chiao Mian dragged her exhausted body out of the hotel. As soon as he left the gate, he received a call from Chiao Angzan. Sister Chiao Angzan's voice on the other end of the phone was soft and soft, let's talk. Chiao Mian squeezed the phone tightly, took a deep breath, and said coldly, I have nothing to talk about with you. Really? Chiao Angzan smiled softly, what if it's something related to Chiao Chen, doesn't sister want to talk about it? Chiao Chen? Chiao Mian's face suddenly changed, and she gritted her teeth and said, Chiao Angzan, what do you mean? Chiao Angzan answered the question incorrectly. She chuckled and said, sister, I'll wait for you at the Minjiao Hotel. See you there. Asterisk. When Chiao Mian arrived at the restaurant, Chiao Angzan was already sitting in the box waiting for her. She had delicate makeup on her face and a little black skirt that showed off her figure. Her hair was slightly curly. When she raised her hands, a faint scent of perfume filled the air from her body. Seeing Chiao Mian, she smiled slightly and said in a soft voice, sister is here? Sit down quickly. Chiao Mian stood at the table, looking at her with cold eyes. Chiao Angzan didn't seem to mind. She calmly and elegantly took out a check from her bag and put it on the table. Sister, here is 10 million. I believe this money is enough for you to have enough food and clothing for the rest of your life. She raised her head, with a bit of arrogance and a bit of superiority in her eyebrows. I know, the illness that Chiao Chen suffered cost a lot of money, and now you can only make money by playing small roles on the set, which is quite hard. With this money, both you and Chiao Chen can live a little easier. Chiao Mian looked at the check on the table with no expression on her face. Sister, let's open the skylight and speak frankly, let's not beat around the bush. Chiao Angzan hooked her lips, stretched out her hand to touch her belly, and then said, last night, you must have heard it? I was pregnant with brother A's. The child, this child, I intend to give birth to. Before that, you must break off your engagement with brother A's. Otherwise, his children and I will have a bad reputation. You also know that brother A's is about to take over the Su family. At this juncture, he cannot make any mistakes. Therefore, I hope you can take the initiative to go to the Su family and propose to terminate the engagement. Hearing her say such shameless words, Chiao Mian didn't feel particularly angry anymore. Probably, all the emotions were vented last night. When she heard these words again, she only felt ridiculous and ironic. She raised the corners of her lips mockingly, Chiao Angzan, does Suzy know about these things you have done? Last night, when Chiao Angzan mentioned that she was pregnant, Suzy did not look very happy. Obviously, the child was a surprise to him. He is about to take over the Su family. Before that, he will definitely not disclose his relationship with Jiao Angzhen. This matter is disgraceful after all and will affect his personal reputation. Su Ziyi must not know about Jiao Angzhen's private visit to her. Sure enough, Jiao Angzhen's face suddenly changed, with a somewhat angry look on her face. Jiao Mian, let go. Brother A's likes me. He has stopped loving you a long time ago. If it weren't for him, you have to fulfill the marriage contract between your two families since childhood. Do you think he will choose you? Jiao Mian, is it interesting that you occupy a man who doesn't love you? End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 6. Chapter 6 Sorry, Mian. Jiao Mian looked calm. After hearing her shameless words, she calmed down. It's not your turn as a third party to interfere in the matter between Su Ziyi and me. The expression on Jiao Angzhen's face stiffened and her face darkened. She bit her lip. So, you won't take the initiative to terminate the engagement? Jiao Mian sneered. If you come to me just to tell me about this matter, I'm not interested. After saying that, she turned around and prepared to leave. Stop. Jiao Angzhen stood up and grabbed her hand. Jiao Mian, how much money do you want to leave Brother A's? 10 million won't do it, how about 15 million? Don't be too evil, I'll give it to you, the price is enough. Snapped. Jiao Mian couldn't bear it anymore. He turned around and slapped her. Her slap fell, and 5 bright red fingerprints instantly appeared on Jiao Angzhen's sweet little face. This slap stunned Jiao Angzhen. She covered her face with a look of disbelief. After she realized what she was doing, she raised her hand to return the slap. Suddenly her eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar figure outside the door. Her expression suddenly changed, she retracted her hand in an instant, and stumbled back 2 steps. Before Jiao Mian could react, she saw a frightened look on her face as if she had been frightened. She shouted palely, "Sister, I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. But I really can't control it, my own feelings, I really love Brother A's. Sister, please forgive me, please don't hurt my child." She was about to fall to the ground. With a bang, the door was pushed open, and a slender figure rushed in quickly. Peace of mind. The white figure flew past Jiao Mian's eyes, rushed to Jiao An's side like lightning, and hugged her tightly. "An Xian, are you okay?" The person who rushed in was Su Ziyi. Jiao Angzhen leaned against him weakly, raised her head, her eyes filled with tears, and cried out pitifully, "Brother A's. I'm so scared just now, our baby almost died." As she spoke, her body trembled, and tears fell heavily on her pale face. "Brother A's, I know I'm sorry for my sister, and I don't dare to ask for her forgiveness. She beat me and scolded me. It's okay, I owe her this. But our baby is innocent, how could she?" Jiao Angzhen had just received that slap, and her face was still swollen. The fingerprints on it have not faded yet. The eyes with tears are also red and swollen. She still had a frightened expression on her face, as if she was frightened, and her weak body was trembling in his arms. Su Ziyi looked at her like this and felt even more pity. When he looked at Jiao Mian again, his eyes became increasingly gloomy, with deep disappointment and disgust in his eyes. "Jiao Mian, the child in an Xian's belly has only been more than a month old, and now is the most unstable period. You know, if she really fell to the ground with the push you just made, what would be the consequences? I thought you were always kind and gentle, how could you become so vicious now? Am I evil?" Jiao Mian shook her body and looked at the man standing in front of her in disbelief. He is dressed in white clothes and white trousers. He has a handsome appearance and a gentle temperament. He is like a handsome nobleman from a noble family in ancient times. She has liked this face for many years. But at this moment, looking at this face, she felt stranger than ever. She is his fiancée. They have known each other for 10 years. But he immediately chose to believe Jiao Angzhen. After 10 years of relationship, is this how much he trusts her? In his eyes, Suzy, Jiao Mian, turned out to be a vicious-hearted woman. Seeing him holding Jiao Angzhen in his arms extremely protectively, but when he faced her, his eyes were full of accusations and haze. Her heart became colder inch by inch, and her eyes were full of ridicule and disappointment. Suzy, didn't you forget whose fiancée you were, and who the woman you were holding in your arms was? Suzy was stunned for a few seconds. He met Jiao Mian's mocking and sad eyes, his brows tightened, his eyes finally showed a trace of guilt, but he still held the woman in his arms tightly. I'm sorry, Mian. An Xin is pregnant with my child, she must be held accountable. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. As you wish, we break off the engagement. Jiao Mian felt like she had heard a big joke. You have to be responsible for her? What about me? Suzy, who am I? Suzy pursed his lips. He looked down at Jiao Angzhen, who was frightened and pale and still trembling in his arms. He tightened his arms and held her firmly in his arms. Jiao Angzhen also reached out and hugged him, looking extremely attached to him, and softly called out, "Brother Ace." Suzy reached out and touched her head, then raised his head and looked at Jiao Mian. After a long silence, he said in a hoarse voice, Mian, I'm sorry. The person I love is an Xin. I can't deceive myself, and I don't want to deceive you. Hearing his sorry words one after another, Jiao Mian felt extremely cold and disappointed. She just wants to laugh now. Because she thinks all this is a joke. At the beginning, it was he who said that he would spend a lifetime with her hand in hand and never let her down. It was he who insisted on fulfilling their engagement, saying that he liked her and wanted to take her home to be his wife, Suzy. It was also him who said that Suzy would only love her for the rest of his life. But now, what does all this mean? He actually said that he fell in love with Jiao Angzhen. Jiao Mian's lips curled up a little sarcastically, and she laughed, but her eyes were filled with sadness. You said you fell in love with Jiao Angzhen. Suzy's eyes flashed, and his eyes were full of guilt. He didn't dare to look at her again. He lowered his eyes and said, yes. In his arms, Jiao Angzhen turned her face, curved her lips a little, and showed a smile that belonged to the winner. Her lips moved, but no sound came out of her mouth, but Jiao Mian understood her lip language. She was saying, sister, I won again. Jiao Mian looked at the two people hugging each other, the disappointment and sadness in her eyes faded little by little. After a moment, she nodded, okay, Suzy. She looked at the familiar yet strange face in front of her, with no emotion other than indifference in her eyes. She said word by word, as you wish, we will terminate our engagement. Suzy suddenly raised his head, Mian. Shut up. Jiao Mian looked at him with cold eyes, without any warmth in her eyes. Suzy, from this moment on, we will go back to each other. When we meet again in the future, we will be strangers. Facing her cold eyes, as if looking at a stranger, Suzy felt flustered for no reason. It seemed like, at this moment, he lost something very important. There is also a vacant space somewhere in the heart. His heart felt a dull pain. Jiao Mian didn't look at him again, turned around and walked out of the box. The pace is decisive and decisive, leaving no trace of nostalgia. Before Suzy had time to think about why he felt heartache, his body was already one step ahead of his brain and was chasing after him. Mian. Brother A's. At this moment, I heard Xiao Angzhen's painful groan from behind. My stomach suddenly hurt so much. Suzi's expression changed, he turned around quickly and walked quickly to her side. He supported her, and Xin, what's wrong with you? Xiao Angzhen covered her stomach with one hand and frowned, my stomach suddenly feels uncomfortable and it hurts. Brother A's, is there something wrong with our baby? Once he heard that something was wrong with the baby, Suzi turned all his attention to Xiao Angzhen. I never thought about Xiao Mian again. He looked nervous and said, no, absolutely not. Don't worry, don't think too much. Our baby must be healthy. I will take you to the hospital right away. Xiao Mian walked to the door. Hearing the movement behind him, his footsteps paused. But soon, she opened the door and walked out. Asterisk. Leave the restaurant. Xiao Mian stood on the side of the street, looking at the busy street, looking a little dazed. Just a week ago, Suzi took her to Sue's house. Sue's father and Sue's mother were still asking when they would get married, and they also discussed the specific wedding date with them. At that time, who would have expected that she and Suzi would break up so soon? Betrayed by her childhood sweetheart, the person he cheated on was her half-sister. Xiao Mian felt that her life was so up and bloody. She thought that even if any man could be snatched away by Xiao Angzhen, that person would not be Suzi. But only now did she realize how naive and ridiculous her idea was. Reality slapped her twice the face, and she woke up completely with 2 slaps. The phone suddenly rang. When Xiao Mian saw that it was a call from the hospital, she immediately picked it up. Hello. As soon as she said one word, her face turned pale. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Second brother, you are looking for me. Asterisk. After getting out of the taxi, Xiao Mian rushed to the hospital. She ran too fast and too hastily, and almost fell to the ground when she went up the hospital stairs. In a black Rolls-Royce parked not far away, the driver saw her hurriedly running into the hospital. After thinking about it, he picked up his mobile phone and made a call. After the call, the driver called out respectfully, Mr. Mo. What's going on? On the other end of the phone, the man's voice was deep, cold, and full of texture, like the sound of a low-alcohol cello. I followed the lady as instructed by Mr. Mo. Something happened at home. She just took a taxi to the hospital. I saw that she didn't look well and looked very anxious. There are acquaintances in the hospital here. Do you want to call them? Call. Normally, the driver would not dare to meddle in other people's business. This is the first time that Mr. Mo has asked him to follow someone, and the person he is following is a woman. This woman came out of Mr. Mo's room this morning. For this reason alone, she has extraordinary significance to Mr. Mo. Before this, there was not even a trace of a woman around Mr. Mo. The man over there was silent for a few seconds. Follow me and have a look. Yes, Mr. Mo. Asterisk. Hospital, emergency room. When Xiao Mian arrived, Xiao Chen was still inside rescuing people. After she waited outside in despair for more than an hour, the closed door of the operating room finally opened. Doctors came out one after another. Xiao Mian hurried over, grabbed the first doctor who came out and asked urgently, Doctor, how is my brother? The doctor took off his mask. The patient's vital signs have stabilized and there is no danger to his life for the time being. Xiao Mian burst into tears. So, my brother is safe now, right? Is such that. Thank you, doctor, thank you, doctor, she was ecstatic, tears falling down her pale cheeks one by one. Asterisk. Huaying International. CEO's office. Mr. Mo, this is the information about the lady who came into your room last night. Wei Zheng, assistant to the president, put the newly investigated information on his desk and stepped aside respectfully. A man sat in front of the black desk. The man was wearing a black shirt. The buttons on the cuffs and collar were loosened, and 2 buttons on the chest were loosened, revealing the indelicate collarbone. Further down, you could faintly see a more and attractive chest muscle. He lowered his head and was flipping through the stack of information that Wei Zheng had just given him. From a low angle, the handsome face of A is still deep and charming. Whether it is the high and three-dimensional bridge of the nose or the tightly pursed crimson thin lips, every part of his face is the best of the best, with absolutely captivating capital. With your eyes lowered, you can see the long, thick, and curled eyelashes. This is an effect that many women cannot achieve even with multiple layers of mascara. Wei Zheng secretly glanced at his boss, and then couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Even though he is a man, he is sometimes surprised by the beauty of his boss. After a while, the man raised his head after reading the information. That incredibly handsome face had a very pale expression, and his eyes were very cold. Second brother, look for me. At this moment, the office door was pushed open and a man walked in. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. I swear, everything I say is true. The man who came in was wearing a pink shirt, with the popular dreadlocks, and shiny black diamond earrings on both ears. There was a trace of nervousness on the man's handsome face, and he looked extremely uneasy. After entering the door, he took a few steps forward and did not dare to go any further. He stood 5 or 6 meters away from Mo Yesi with his head bowed, his hands folded in front of him, like a primary school student who had done something wrong, waiting to be criticized by the teacher. Second brother, I was wrong, I was blinded by lard, so I did that thing last night. Second brother, you can beat me or scold me, but please don't send me back to the old man. Mo Yesi raised his head and sneered silently. Yan-san, you are brave enough. For what you did last night, beating and scolding would be an advantage for you. It won't be enough for you to die 100 times. Second brother, I really know my mistake. Yan Shaoking's face turned pale with fright. He walked up to Mo Yesi, threw himself to the ground, shamelessly hugged his thigh and cried, Second brother, I won't dare to do it again. Just forgive me this time, okay? Besides, you didn't lose your virginity last night either. Mo Yesi looked at him with disgust and kicked him away. Yan Ziasen, you'd better explain everything about what happened last night. Otherwise, I will let you walk in and leave lying down. Yan Shaoqing shivered with fright, continued to cry, and then explained everything with tears streaming down his face. After finishing speaking, he said pitifully, Second brother, for the sake of that beauty getting into a car accident on the way, please spare me this time. I swear, I will never dare to do this again. Mo Yesi's expression suddenly changed, and a strange color flashed across his eyes. You said she was in a car accident. Yes, yes, yes. Yan Shaoqing wanted to tell all the 18 generations of his ancestors, I'm still lying in the hospital right now. Mo Yesi seemed calm on the outside, but there was already a turmoil in his heart. Yan Ziasen should not have the guts to lie again. So, if the woman they arranged had a car accident, who was the woman who appeared in his room last night and had been with him all night? He frowned tightly. When Yan Shaoqing saw this, he was so frightened that he began to cry again. Second brother, I have finished explaining everything. I swear, everything I said is true, and there is not a single lie in my mouth. Nothing. Mo Yesi lowered his eyes and stared at him sharply for a while, then kicked him in the leg and said disgustedly, Go away. As if he had escaped from death, Yan Shaoqing immediately jumped up from the ground, turned around and ran away. Okay, okay, second brother, I'll get out of here right away, get out of here right now. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared without a trace. Wei Zheng. He really didn't know that Mr. Yan was so timid and how dared to scheme against Mr. Mo last night. However, I just heard what Mr. Yan said. The woman who went to Mr. Mo's room last night was not the one they arranged, but someone else. Wei Zhen was pondering this question when a low and cold voice sounded in his ears, "Go and check right away. What happened to the woman who appeared in my room last night?" "Yes, Mr. Mo. Asterisk. Hospital." Chiao Chen woke up. Chiao Mian held his hand, looked at his pale and haggard face, and said distressedly, Chen, how do you feel? Do you want the doctor to come and take a look at you?" "Sister, I'm fine." End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Send Mr. Chiao to the VIP ward quickly. Chiao Chen's voice was hoarse and it was a bit laborious to speak. "You don't have to worry about me." Chiao Mian pursed her lips. "How could you not be worried? Chiao Chen is the only relative she cares about in this world. Originally, everything was fine. But at the sports meeting of Chiao Chen's senior year of high school, he suddenly fainted while running. Then it was found out that he had congenital heart disease. This kind of disease is very dangerous once it attacks. He went into shock today and almost couldn't be rescued." Chiao Chen saw her worry, his pale lips curved into a slight smile. He reached out and patted the back of her hand, pretending to be relaxed and said, "I'm really fine, don't you think I'm fine now?" Chen, you." Chiao Mian's eyes turned red. Just as she was about to say something, the door to the ward was pushed open. A group of doctors and nurses came in. The person headed by Chiao Mian knew him, and he was the vice president of the hospital. She looked at the group of people who came in, was stunned for a moment, and frowned slightly. "You. Miss Chiao, we are here to change Mr. Chiao's ward." The deputy dean was very polite, even a little respectful. Chiao Mian was stunned again. Her heart skipped a beat and her face changed. "Change ward? Where?" It seems that the Chiao family already knows about her breakup with Suzy. Father Chiao was originally unwilling to treat Chiao Chen, thinking that his illness could not be cured and spending so much money to stay in the hospital was a waste of money. But she was worried about her engagement with Suzy and didn't dare to make things too ugly. Now that she and Suzy have broken up, she naturally doesn't have to worry about anything anymore. Heh, it's really realistic. Chiao Mian felt angry and sad in her heart. Sometimes, she really doubted whether she and Chiao Chen were picked up from outside, and Chiao Angzhen was the real daughter of Father Chiao. The deputy director said politely, "I felt wronged by letting Mr. Chiao live here before. We will immediately move him to the VIP ward, and then arrange the most professional medical team to treat Mr. Chiao." After saying that, the vice president gave instructions, "Send Mr. Chiao to the VIP ward quickly." Chiao Mian didn't expect it to be like this. She opened her eyes wide in surprise and looked at the deputy dean blankly. Chiao Chen, who was lying on the hospital bed, also looked puzzled and asked in a low voice, "Sister, what is going on?" Chiao Mian blinked, looking confused, "I don't know either." Asterisk. The conditions in VIP wards are n times better than those in ordinary wards. There is not only one room per person, but also one ward for each patient. The ward has a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It is fully equipped. When the window is opened, a large green scenery is eye-catching. The air is not filled with the pungent smell of disinfectant, but a pleasant and light floral fragrance. "Miss Chiao, Mr. Chiao, are you satisfied with it?" The vice president lowered his head and said respectfully, If there is anything you are not satisfied with, we will revise it immediately. Chiao Mian, very satisfied, thank you. The deputy dean breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, we won't disturb you two from resting. If you need anything, press the service bell, and someone will come to serve you immediately.